Hi, I'm Sandy Peckinpah, and I am an author, a women's resilience mentor, and a writing coach. And I scope about using your life story as the backdrop for creating the greatest life you can ever imagine. And I am so glad you're joining me today. 57 Gibson, thank you for joining me. I'm going to flip and say hello. Hi there, Liberty, you made it onto the broadcast. I wasn't expecting you today. So I hope you had a wonderful afternoon, and we'll have to talk maybe after. So, yes, I'm so excited to talk to you today because it's a bit of an extension about what we talked about yesterday. And I titled this, How Chaos is Actually the Next Big Step. And wow, thank you so much for the green hearts, the beautiful green hearts. And if you think that someone may find this broadcast of value, if you would like to share it, you click on that Perry guy down there and it pops up and it says share, and you can share it with your followers or your Twitter followers, whomever you think might find value in it. You know, I love talking about using our life story as the backdrop for really the launch to our new life. Yay, thank you, Liberty. I appreciate you sharing it. And so it's so important that we don't consider our past as sort of a ball and chain, because everybody has had really tough times in their life at one time or another, although it doesn't seem like it. Cynthia's in the house. Thank you for joining us, Cynthia. I'm glad you made it. I love my regular people. It just makes me so happy to be able to talk to you every day. I cannot tell you how exciting it is. Susan, thank you for joining me again. I love it when you can come. So again, right now we're talking about how chaos is actually the next big step. Hello there. I'm glad you're back. And I am so happy to be able to share the things that I've learned in my life through my own life experiences, to be able to show you how important it is that you acknowledge your own life experiences for the value that it has in planning the next part of your life. Having connection issues, chaos. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I hope no one else is. Anyway, hang in there with me, and if you lose contact, you can always watch the replay, because the replay usually records regardless. I don't know why that is, but anyway. As most of us, life has handed us twists and turns and unexpected things that happen that we never planned for. And a bit blurry, but can hear fine. Okay, great. You know, I had the cable guy out, and he amped up my internet broadcast, and it's supposed to be like super fast now and efficient. And I don't know that it's made all that much difference, but I'm paying $10 more a month, so oh well. I hope. So when life hands us the unexpected, what do we do with it? Well, we have two choices. We can either just be miserable and say, wow, that really was a terrible thing that happened in my life, and I didn't deserve it, and I'm really upset about it, and it's going to be a ball and chain for the rest of my life. I mean, how many people do you know who have said something happened in third grade that made them feel unworthy, and so they felt that this was a sentence for the rest of their life to be feeling unworthy? Well, what I love looking at is the positive and negative of every side of every life experience that you have, because believe me, there is a positive and negative side. And I promise you, I have done this so many times in looking at my life, and I have analyzed it so carefully over the last 20 years for the positives and the negatives, and what I can draw from it in order to lead a successful life. And that's what I'm sharing with you. Now, yesterday, we talked about a feeling of that feeling of sort of uncertainty. And what do we do? Let me just pull up yesterday's stuff. So we have several ways that we can effectively transition our lives from uncertainty to planning. And we talked about that. I'm going to do a quick recap of that yesterday because that's a really important point of what we're talking about today. So uncertainty is an uncomfortable feeling for all of us. And think about this. If it feels like chaos, and I really want you to hear this, if it feels like chaos, it might just be the door to transition. If it feels like chaos, you might be standing at the door of transition. And the reason I know this is not only from my own life, but I've done a lot of studying from this guy, William Bridges. He's written 2 books that I have read, Transitions and The Way of Transition. And if you'll notice, do you see all those little flags? Well, that's only a sampling of what's highlighted in this book. Oh my gosh. I was reading this book with a highlighter and flag pen and highlighting and underlining and taking notes. And I don't know if anybody else reads books that way, but I cannot read a book, even a fiction book, without having a highlighter in my hand. Transition is so cool. It is, Liberty. Susan, that's a big smile. I assume that you've had that feeling. Because books are meant to be written in. You know, there was a time growing up where we were not allowed to write in books. And, you know, most of our books were library books. We didn't have affordable books like we do now. And yes, great, Susan. I'm so glad. And so I find so much value in reading with a highlighter and a flag because as a writer, and I just want to really stress the importance of everyone being a writer in some form or another. And that means either keeping a journal or writing your memoir or writing articles or blogs, all integral parts of conducting business today because we're on the internet and our word is out there. And so it is so important to be able to have knowledge of writing your story and telling your story in order to connect with people. So yesterday we talked about, and this will be a quick recap, the 3 ways to effectively implement visualization for actual measurable results. Yes, a big yes from Liberty. And the first was imagine it. By imagining it in our brain, it wakes us up. It awakens our brain to possibility. And what it does, if you imagine it, it's called outcome simulation. And that's a research term, outcome simulation. If you imagine it, it's outcome simulation and it increases the chances of it happening. Step 2 is picture it, called process simulation. And that means you maybe create a vision board and look at pictures, or you browse the internet, or say you want to open a candy store, you start looking at locations on the internet and see, you know, places that you would like to have your store. Liberty, I thought that was just psychosis. Yay, I'm not psychotic. No, you're not. You're visualizing your future. My goodness. That's the brilliance of it. You know, when I was growing up, I don't think we had all of this vast amount of knowledge to be able to draw from. And I'm telling you, the internet has brought me a whole new world in these past 20 years that I never expected. And it is so exciting to have those tools available to us that we grow and change at a rate far faster than we did in, you know, years ago, 20, 30 years ago. And so process simulation is also an important part of visualization. Now the third part, and this wasn't in the research, this is my own research, is that you write it. By writing about it, this takes it to a whole new level. By writing it in your journal or wherever you choose to write it, and I do, admired Red Rose is back. Yay, thank you for coming back. By writing about it, hello, welcome. by writing about it, it takes it to a whole new level because it unlocks the brain. It starts everything, imagination, picturing, all of it happens inside that brain, flows down into your arm, and you're able to write it out the end of your pen. And what that does, I promise you, if you do this 2 minutes a day, your brain will be rewired in 21 days, according to Sean Achor from the Happiness Advantage. He was a Harvard researcher on happiness. He said, let me just read, 2 minutes a day for 6 weeks alters brain chemistry. 3 weeks it starts to become a habit. 6 weeks it actually alters brain chemistry. And when we do that, our brain becomes more engaged, more alive, more creative, more energetic. It makes us want to participate in our own lives more. We become active in our lives instead of passive. Isn't that an amazing thing? And you know what? I love his research. Because actually my blog is called Breakthrough to Happy, and I started my blog about 3 or 4 years ago. And then I heard about Sean Achor with the Happiness Advantage from Oprah Winfrey, and I was so fascinated with all of the statistics and research that he's done that validate what I have felt about happiness for so long. And given the life challenges that I've had in my life, yeah, I could look at all the things that I've had in my life that are negative, and I can look at all the things that I've had in my life that are positive. And I think the negative were so profoundly affecting that I probably would say there was a scale there that it tipped it over the edge. But guess what? I recovered it. I recovered the happiness. I recovered the joy because I never let my brain stop believing that I could. And that all comes from those 3 points of visualization. So here's what I'm excited to tell you. So step 1 is be comfortable with uncertainty, because like William Bridges says, the transition process ends the old and begins the new. Between ending and beginning is the emptiness of the neutral zone and the chaos from which all new life flows. Isn't that amazing? I want to read it again. The transition process ends the old and begins the new. Between ending and beginning is the emptiness of the neutral zone, the chaos from which all new life flows. Now that is so powerful. And you know what? I can tell by those beautiful hearts that maybe that affected you deeply, to recognize that you may be feeling chaos, and that's okay, because creativity and your ability to make changes is born out of chaos. It's not born out of stagnation. And so once we start to feel that chaos, and I've felt it many times in my life, and what I realized, and in these 2 books, The Way of Transition by William Bridges and Transitions by William Bridges, it validates so much. Oh, you know what, Susan? Gosh, I wish, should I read it slowly? Okay, I'm going to read it one more time because I really want this to sink in. This is William Bridges. So, the transition process ends the old and begins the new. I'll say it again. The transition process ends the old and begins the new. Between ending and beginning is the emptiness of the neutral zone. Again, between ending and beginning is the emptiness of the neutral zone, the chaos from which all new life flows. That's so powerful. because I used to think there was something wrong with me when I felt anxious and uneasy and restless. And, as women, I think we go through that stage, particularly, at least for me, it was in my 40s and 50s, where I felt this restlessness, and I didn't know what it was, and I was scared, and I knew there had to be something more. And I kept asking myself, what is this feeling? I'm scared. And so, here's the deal. If you are feeling a restlessness, that's a creative force. Good. Okay, Susan, great. If you're feeling a restlessness, that's a creative force that is bubbling up inside of you. And that's step 2 for today. Live as a creative force, not a task enforcer. Live as a creative force, not a task enforcer. So you learn the power of creativity by writing something for 2 minutes. Thank you. I wrote that. You learn the power of creativity by writing something down for 2 minutes a day. And all of a sudden, your thoughts become very creative. Liberty, you do live that, because tasks are boring. If we just continue to give ourselves tasks day after day, then our business and our lives never become creative. I became a successful real estate agent in 2002, and I never expected that life because I had come from the entertainment business, and it's all I knew for 25 years with my late husband, David Peckinpah. And I suddenly was thrown into having to support my 3 children. And I wanted to move them out of Los Angeles because I needed a quieter lifestyle for them and for me after all the chaos that I'd been through with losing my son, losing my marriage. All of that became so chaotic in my life. And I decided that by moving south of Los Angeles, just an hour and a half south of Los Angeles, that I could provide something, a safe place for my heart and my mind and my children's lives. And, I decided to become a real estate agent simply because I couldn't figure out what else I could do, because I knew I couldn't, I had been writing and I had been acting, but it was not enough to sustain my 3 children and myself. And so I had to figure out a way to create an income for myself that would bring comfort and a level of comfort and income. And real estate for me, it felt at first like it was a numbers game. It was, it wasn't in alignment with what my skills were. I'd been writing and I'd been acting, and it was all from the creative part of my brain. Suddenly I was thrown into a numbers and contractual and all of this by the book sort of business, and it scared me because that wasn't the way I had conducted my life for the last 25 years. And what I had to do was I had to realize that there was something creative about the real estate business. I just had to find it. And you know what? I did. And I won't go into that now because that's for another conversation, and I want to make sure I give you all the points that we're discussing today. But everything is a creative process. Everything. From deciding what you're going to wear in the morning, to what you're going to eat, to what you're going to say to people, to the story you're going to tell, to the email that you're going to send, to what you're going to post on Facebook, to what you're going to do on Periscope. All of those things are a creative process. And so what you need to do is live as a creative force, not a task enforcer. And so in real estate, instead of waking up and saying, okay, number 1, I have to make 10 calls a day. Number 2, I have to figure out my numbers to make sure I'm in alignment for the month. Got to go. Oh, Susan, thank you. You can always catch it the replay. Thank you. I appreciate your participation. Become a creative force where number 1 becomes connecting with someone who has never bought a home before and they're so excited. And how could I make this happen? And how could I make this a creative, exciting experience for them? And believe me, I did. And it was so much fun, and it continues to be fun. And so, live as a creative force, not a task enforcer, is such an important part of our success, because suddenly the switch goes on and the light begins to glow inside of you, and wow, your life has only just begun. And so step 3 is read between the lines. Liberty says, I've remembered every realtor I ever had. So important. Well, that's good to know. Thank you. You know what? That's really a great thing to know, because I take my job very seriously. So step 3, the very next step is to read between the lines. Those 2 minutes a day are the keys to discovering who you are. So what is it telling you? Consider the possibility that at some level you already know what you need to do next. I mean, it may be hidden in your words. So listen for the words that are in that 2 minutes a day, like, I wish I could, or I always thought about doing, or a crazy idea I had today, or the things that I find myself reading these days. What are those things? I wish I could. And for me it was, I wish I could write a story about my loss, the loss of my beautiful son, that could make a difference in other people's lives. And I said that for a long time. And for me, the very next step, step 4, was to say, if I knew the very next step, what would it be? For me, the dream was to sit down and write that story. And it might be for you too, because I know a lot of you on here are writers. Liberty says, every morning I begin meditating with thank you for showing me with great clarity my next steps to fulfilling my soul's purpose. Beautiful, beautiful. And that's so important to ask yourself every time you sit down to write, why? And how can I be of service? And I know Cynthia is on here, and she is a writer who believes the same thing. She has so much inside of her that she wants to tell that story. Liberty, you've been telling your story for a while, for a long time. And those sorts of things make a difference in other people's lives. Now, for me, the next dream was to write the story of my loss, but I had fear. And the fear, of course, was it would be too painful. Okay, so I set up roadblocks. We all do this. We all set up roadblocks. So there are many reasons why we can't write. For me, it was, I'm too busy with real estate. I get home too late. It's too painful. I can't write about it and still be a good realtor and be ready for my clients. It's too personal. I'm afraid the lives that I have to include in my story, it might, either offend them or make them uncomfortable with being in a book. Is it doing my son justice? Is it giving him the story that needs to be told, his legacy? Roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And you know what? That was all born out of fear. Just fear. And none of it was real. I could make time. I could go through the pain in order to put it on the written page. And in many ways, it was healing. It gave me the healing that I needed. And I knew I had something of value to share with other people. It was so fulfilling. It made me feel so happy. And yes, I cried tears every day when I wrote my story. But I also would get up and I would dance around the house feeling so happy that I had accomplished it, that I felt like I had been living on my purpose. And so step 5 is find comfort in the discomfort. Because remember, change hurts sometimes. It's scary. It's mental and emotional uneasiness. And And it's also the mark of successful change. And so the other thing I want to share with you, oh, beautiful roses. Thank you. And look at all these hearts. Oh, I think I have over 41,000 now, by the way. I'm so thrilled. And, I hope you all are following me, because I have so much more I want to share with you. And especially, Liberty says change is not painful. Resistance to change is painful. Absolutely. Change is not painful. Resistance to change is painful. Yes, yes, yes. What is it that Stephen Pressfield says? If you want to write your story, get your butt in the chair. And that is so important, because resisting that desire is more painful. It's so true. There's a huge part of this that has to do with self-doubt. And I want you to listen to my self-doubt. So here's my self-doubt. Wow. Who am I to write a story about loss when I feel like sometimes I haven't healed at all? And that's the truth. Who am I? Well, sometimes I feel like a fraud, because there are mornings when I wake up and I cry my eyes out because I miss my boys so much. Who am I? Well, I'm the perfect person to write about my struggle, because I know better than anybody that's the natural, normal process of going through recovery of something that's happened in your life. Those feelings that somehow you're doing it all wrong, or you're making mistakes, or you're struggling. Liberty, love you, so honest, so vulnerable, not a fraud, a mom who misses her sweet son. Never, I missed that last part. Oh, thank you. Never goes away. Yeah, never goes away. Never. And that's what I share with people. But I also share the hope, because I want you to know that no matter what your loss, as you begin to heal, and I'm not going to use the word time goes on, because there is no time. There's no time frame that you actually heal. But what there is are moments of relief and moments of peace. And those moments may be fleeting. And as you begin to heal, you get more and more of them. And the times in between get longer. So the times that you don't feel pain, it's longer in between the pain. So it is so, I hope I said that right. The times where you feel the pain are shorter and shorter, or moments of remembering the rest of your life, yes. And so all of those feelings of feeling like a fraud, or who am I to do this? You're the perfect person to do this, because guess what? Those are the very feelings that will give you the desire and the passion to write your story, because you're evolving. And that's what 2 minutes a day writing in your journal will do, is evolve your brain and your mind, and you'll find resolution and comfort in knowing that you've got a heck of a lot to say. And there are people out there waiting. So the next step, stay faithful to your dreams. It's your calling. I promise you. Keep your agreement with yourself to do it, because that's taking the next step. If you're not true to yourself, who will you be true to? And so there's a story out there that someone is waiting to hear, and that story can change a person's life, and not just one. It might change many people's lives. And they are waiting because there's a reader who will resonate with you telling your story. Or there's a person in the coffee shop who's waiting for your story to give her hope, to show her the way that she's not the only person feeling those feelings. Does that make sense? I didn't believe it fully until it happened to me. And I know that my story has made a huge difference in people's lives. Not just one. In fact, here I'll show you my books. And every one of them has I've gotten feedback, have changed people. And How to Survive the Worst That Can Happen. A Parent's Step-by-Step Guide for Healing After the Loss of a Child. I get emails, letters, Facebook posts, messages, tweets, you name it. I get people validating that they were the reason why I wrote that book. Not just one, but many. And no matter how painful it is, it made it all worthwhile. And thank you for the hearts, because that validates it too. Number 2, I wrote a book called Passion by Design. And it's about designing and living a life of passion in your surroundings. Interior design and creating beautiful homes and beautiful spaces for you to find happiness in. I wrote a book called Chester the Imperfect All-Star, a children's fairy tale for a child who was born with one leg missing. And it's actually based on a true story of a little boy that was on one of my husband's shows. His mom worked on one of my husband's shows for CBS. And we were up in San Francisco filming the series. And that was my second book. And I met this little boy who was born, and he didn't have the lower part of his leg. And his dream was to play baseball. And I thought, wow, I have to write him a fairy tale. And so I did. And this book actually won the Independent Living Award in in Berkeley, California. And I won the award along with Neil Young. It was so exciting to meet him because he's one of my musical heroes. And he did a lot of work for a center for the Center for Independent Living, and he received the award along with me that year. And then Rosie the Imperfect Angel is, of course, the book that I wrote for my daughter, who was born with a cleft and Great Canadian. Oh, you know what? I never knew that. And Rosie the Imperfect Angel changed lives, and I've shared that with you, so I won't share it with you again, but I've shared that 20 years later, the impact that book had on someone's life. He is now a Broadway producer. And so I want you to believe that what your story matters. And I want you to join me on the Writers Challenge, because I'm going to be doing a 5-day Writers Challenge to get you started. Now, you're not going to write your story in 5 days. But I'm going to tell you how to get your butt in the chair, like Stephen Pressfield says. And I'm going to tell you what professional writers do to be writers and to stay committed to your goal of writing your story. And if you want to be part of it, you can message me on @SandyPeckinpah on Twitter, and I can put you on the email list. And you can also, Liberty says, I wrote my story in 5 weeks, 880 pages. Whoa, that is amazing. Wow, see, it can be done. So I hope you join me on that writing challenge. And I want to just leave you with a thought about trust yourself that you'll follow through with your dreams. Because the first person in life you should trust is yourself. And you should believe in yourself. And yes, Liberty, you're one of those rare people who has no trouble sitting in a chair and writing. It's your gift. And it's the essence of everything that you represent. And, there are others out there that are just ready to be that too. So I thank you for joining me. I am so glad for the hundreds of hearts that I've seen coming up in all of this, and I'm going to be back tomorrow as usual, and I'll continue this conversation with you about how important your next big step is, and especially knowing your story and how it can play out in your life. Because think about it, all stories connect you with other people. That's what you learned about people. When you have a new friend, you learn about their stories. And it's a connector. It's a way of doing business, because all sales Everybody's a salesman in their life, even to negotiating with your children. It's all sales. And sales is connection, and connection is story. Who you are, and who you are in their life, what you evoke in them. And so thank you for joining me today. I am so grateful. I love you all so much for this opportunity, and I will be back tomorrow. Bye-bye.